Hello, everybody. I am excited to speak to you this week. It seems we have a guest on with us. So you guys are all excited to learn. So, Damon, I'm going to introduce you now. I'm going to half attempt your surname, which is going to be a challenge with an Irish accent. So we'll give it a go. So it's Damon Sununtnasuk. Am I correct?
That's
Almost correct.
really good. Yeah, Sununtnasuk, but Damon's totally fine.
Yeah, well, it's just as bad when people try to pronounce my name, so we'll just leave it at that. So, um, Damon, who is, you're very welcome to the Find Your Model Health podcast. Damon serves as the CEO and founder of Natural Cure Labs, operating as Palmara Health and Vital Tales brand in supplements. And we're very happy to have you, Damon, with us to discuss all things monolaurin. But before we go on, I must remind listeners that the information in these episodes is just for informational purposes only and should not be taken as medical advice. Please consult your health practitioner before making any lifestyle changes. Okay, Damon, so let's start. What got you into this field and interested in monolaurin specifically?
Yeah, great question, and thanks so much for having me. My my wellness journey started back in well, the business started in 2015, but my wellness journey started well before then. I actually spent quite a bit of time in the United Kingdom, both for university and to work, and the UK, like other countries overseas, benefits from having social healthcare services, right? So I never really had to think twice about my personal health and getting access to healthcare. Now, I'm originally from the United States, so I moved back to the US in 2015. And for the first time in my adult life, I sort of found myself in a position where I was like really relating to the 29 million Americans who don't have access to health insurance and the 58 million adults who suffer from something called medication insecurity, where they cannot afford the access to the therapeutic drugs and treatments that they need to stay healthy. And I thought to myself, gosh, there must be a better way here. And I set off to find a way to provide affordable, accessible, research-based wellness solutions that don't require insurance or a formal path such as that. So that was my start in 2015. I was very fortunate enough to be surrounded by other folks in the wellness space who were really passionate about alternative therapies. The one that specifically got me down the monolaurin path was someone who was a fan of something called oil pulling. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the practice, but for those who are not, it's when you put some coconut oil in your mouth, you hold it in your mouth for a few minutes, and then you spit it out. And the thought here is that coconut oil has therapeutic properties and may be healthy for your teeth and gums, may draw out uh, toxins or impurities. And I thought to myself, gosh, that's really interesting. And it got me down this rabbit hole of researching the therapeutic properties of coconut oil, which there are many, right? There are topical applications for skin and hair. There, people ingest coconut oil in many, many ways through putting it in their coffee in the mornings to using as a cooking ingredient to eating, coconut flesh and drinking coconut water. And the research that existed at the time was really impressive and very convincing, and it's just grown since then, right? And happy to sort of expand on some of those findings and what the research was suggesting.
Yeah, of course. That whole coconut oil pulling, it's an acquired taste. it did pick up momentum for a while when coconut oil had its kind of highlight moment. I think it's kind of calming down a bit now. I mean, it had its time in the keto and the paleo space, but people are kind of slowing down now. I don't know if that's the economy or what, but there's not as much talk around coconut oil. But I remember people were doing the whole oil pulling, and I did try it myself. I'm like, I'm just gonna stick to maybe tea tree oil and cinnamon here because that's definitely when it catches. I know the benefits, but that whole catchy, oily feeling in around your gums and teeth, that's not for me. So okay, so there's a from my own research, and I have spoke about monolaurin in the past with my clients. I have the type of clients that ask a lot of questions, so I get a lot of topics that come up, and I'm always looking for the holistic approach, the easiest way, something that is tangible as well for people to do. I mean, I speak about molecular hydrogen a lot, but that's still out of a lot of people's reach right now. But when it comes to monolaurin and other kind of aids that we can use to our health, uh, my clients are I'm lucky enough. They're inclined to follow my advice and go and get what I tell them to get. But we're all looking, I think, right now with the environment to take responsibility for our health and all these things, as I call them, they're tools. It doesn't mean they're going to fix everything, but they're tools that we can have in our little toolbox and use as we need them. So, monolaurin being one of those tools. And I had mentioned to you in our conversations that I had a direct interest in monolaurin for Candida and thyroid health and metabolism. And I've looked at a few of the stuff you've sent me, and I've shared my own studies and references in my group. Well, can you briefly mention the benefits that you have uncovered or where you have seen research supporting potential health benefits for monolaurin?
Absolutely. And I just wanted to reiterate one of the themes that you had mentioned earlier, which is that supplements by their nature and definition are meant to be supplemental to overall lifestyle and wellness choices. There's no silver bullet here, and what we're going to speak about today is not meant to be a cure or some
Mm.
sort of miracle potion for anything. It's all part of people's overall wellness journey, which includes things like eating right and getting the right amount of exercise, limiting stress, getting proper sleep, and supplements may or may not be part of that overall approach to health and wellness. So thanks for saying that, and I definitely wanted to agree and reiterate that. So there are a lot of really great resources to uncover the potential benefits of monolaurin as a supplement. Monolaurin's been around for many decades. It was first isolated, I believe, in the 1960s, and it's found a home in a lot of um, commercial food and cosmetic production applications. It's used in the processing of many foods that we're all familiar with, like pastas and ice cream. It's also used on the outside of fruits and vegetables to aid in the transport of these products and the shelf stability. And it's even found in cosmetics and most recently I came across a shampoo that had monolaurin in it, which is pretty
Is
fascinating.
that a good thing though if
I
it's in shampoo?
I
Would
think
that be
so. I
good?
mean the shampoo is it's a French brand. I don't remember the brand off the top of my
Mm.
head, but it's a shampoo that's meant to support like scalp health, I think. And again, if people read into the therapeutic potential therapeutic benefits of monolaurin, there may be some really interesting topical properties where monolaurin is able to help, scalp health, etc.
I'm gonna look
But it's
into that.
yeah, I'll find the brand and label and send it your way so you can have a look. But monolaurin as a supplement is a relatively new phenomenon. Monolaurin actually comes from lauric acid. Lauric acid is a medium chain fatty acid which is found naturally in coconut oil and palm kernel oil. It's also curiously found in human breast milk. And so infants, when they breastfeed, get a lot of lauric acid in their diet. And their their regional diets. So foods that are make use of a lot of palm and coconut oil or coconut flesh benefit from gaining access to lauric acid. And when lauric acid is ingested in the body, it's converted into monolaurin, and this is the property. This is the topic of our discussion today, and the topic of indeed a lot of research that you can find. And before I get too deep into what that research may suggest, I have to first caveat that as a representative of a supplement company, there's a lot of things that I cannot say. We are trying to be as compliant as possible and follow the rules as closely as possible. And because of that, there's a lot of things we can't say. But I don't think that's necessarily an issue, because I wouldn't expect any listener to sort of take my word for it, right? I could have a vested interest, and so it's always best for listeners and consumers and the general public to seek out the research on their own. So maybe I'll start some of the research topics by like explaining where
Yeah,
you maybe gain access to some of these
of
amazing
course.
studies. The first and foremost is probably PubMed. So NCBI is a national database which is maintained by the National Institutes of Health in the United States. It has hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of research articles that are very academic in nature, and this is a lot of these studies that are in NCBI are what the industry likes to call maybe the gold standard, right? These are
Hmm.
multi-centered, double-blinded, placebo-controlled studies, which are all peer-reviewed. And so this is a really, really great place to start. And what the nice thing about PubMed is it works just like Google, right? There's a search bar. You enter the search terms that you're interested in learning about. And in our case, it may be monolaurin, it may be lauric acid, it may be a combination of monolaurin and some therapeutic benefit you're seeking to associate with it. And then you can find lots of results. The second resource I might recommend is Google Scholar. Um, just as the name suggests, it's run by Google, but it focuses only on those academic and research type studies. And Google Scholar casts a bit of a wider net when it comes to the results, and the results are fascinating. Thousands of results when you search for monolaurin. And the final resource I might recommend is something called Monolaurin and More. And one of the challenges with looking at PubMed or even Google Scholar is that the results that are returned, they're written for an academic audience. They're written by uh, either students, researchers, or scientists, and they're full of Latin terms and lots of numbers, and they may not be accessible to everyone. So there's a really nice website called Monolaurin and More, which distills a lot of the research articles into more friendly, like 1,000-word articles. And what's cool about this website is it categorizes the research into friendly groupings, right? So, looking at the website right now, there are indeed categorizations for monolaurin and yeast infections, which include Candida and thrush and other yeast overgrowths. For I think you mentioned thyroid, so there's a section on autoimmune challenges, and it talks about monolaurin and Hashimoto's. And there's a lot of interesting articles on this particular site which talk about biofilm formations and about bacterial and viral infections, and it gets even more explicit and more specific about different types of infections and different types of ailments, which I think is really fascinating. The website again, like it's third party, it's not branded, it doesn't have any affiliation with a particular brand. It really just summarizes a lot of the really great research out there with references directly back to the original studies, as well as verbatim quotes from these different articles. So again, I can't talk about any particular study explicitly here, just to stay as compliant as possible. But what I can really recommend is, like, folks, get out there and start looking around for yourself. And if there's something that you could start by casting your own wide net and looking just for monolaurin and lauric acid, and I promise you you'll get some really fascinating results back. Or if you had a very particular interest in particular uh, ailment or process or whatever it may be, you can look that up as well.
I think most people, well, the people I come across, they have a specific topic or ailment in mind. So I pulled up that website and it looks really great because should someone want to know, like the first topic came up for the herpes virus, like that is quite helpful that everything is referenced quite easily and it seems to be quite easily digestible for most people because like you said, not everyone can understand the lingo, the science lingo that's on PubMed, and which is probably one of the top requests I get is what does this mean? It's just kind of filtering it down and making it easily digestible for people because otherwise, if people don't understand what they're reading, they can't help themselves. So they do need these filters. So that looks like a really great site. I'm going to look at it more when we're done. Again, that's monolaurinandmore.com. And I did see it mentions a bit there about the biofilms, and I know biofilms are a problem for a lot of people, not just for, I think a lot of people, when they hear biofilms, they maybe just think of Lyme disease, but you can get biofilms everywhere and anywhere. As we were talking over the last few days, I was, of course, doing a bit more research and back to what I'd mentioned that my interest was in Candida. My interest is around where I get questions. And I came across some great research showing the efficacy of monolaurin around breaking down these biofilms, which can really be a challenge for people getting over infections and even infiltrating certain viruses, which I found really interesting. So if anyone wants to see one of the studies I was looking at, you'll find it on nature.com. This one actually is called Understanding Protection from SARS-CoV-2, of course, a hot topic now, using metabolomics, which basically referenced loads of other studies supporting the idea that monolaurin possesses antiviral effects against enveloped RNA and DNA viruses. And I think I'd heard you mention something about that on another podcast because the mRNA, I mean, there's keywords in the last 2 years, if you've been listening, that have popped up, and biofilms and mRNA is one of them. So what have you came across on that?
Yeah, exactly. So there are different types of viruses that exist, and an enveloped virus has been, of course, in headlines because of the current health situation. And enveloped viruses have this fatty lipid sheath that protects the DNA or the RNA of the virus, and these enveloped viruses are really common. These can be influenza, whether they're I think measles is an enveloped RNA virus. Like you mentioned, I believe SARS-CoV-2 is also an enveloped RNA virus. And there are some very interesting studies that can be found when you look in any of these websites as it relates to monolaurin and its potential relationship and impact with enveloped viruses, whether that's a DNA enveloped virus or an RNA enveloped virus.
Yeah, it's interesting, and it's more interesting now because of what we've all just lived through. But this goes back to stuff like monolaurin and supplements being potential tools that we can use. We're not saying they're going to fix everything, they're not miracles, they're not cures, but they're potential tools that can help you along the way of kind of discovering what works for your own health. So I found that really interesting because back to the Candida thing, it can be hard to break into that biofilm. This is why we see reoccurrences. So having monolaurin as a tool may help many people. And then I was looking, inflammation is a big one for what I do. I do believe from my work and experience that inflammation is one of the drivers behind a lot of ailments that we experience. And I noticed that monolaurin has anti-inflammatory properties, which I think nearly every natural product at this stage has anti-inflammatory properties. But what interested me was the anti-inflammatory aspect around the thyroid, like I mentioned, metabolism, which could be part of that whole hair shampoo thing. If you can reduce the inflammation at the follicles, maybe your hair is not going to fall out. I mean, that could be it. So, you guys have, because I've seen your team, you have a lot of doctors on your team, which is amazing. I was quite surprised. I was like, oh, it's not just a one man show, there's a couple of them. Have you guys seen or even done much work in your own lab around the anti-inflammatory effects of monolaurin?
Yeah, so we commit a significant portion of our effort and resources to the pursuit of research, right? We never want to produce a formula or a product that is not backed by legitimate research, right? So that's why we seek out the support and help of a lot of industry professionals, including MDs, PhDs, PharmDs, and lots of compliance professionals
Mhm,
within the space. Um, and we have engaged several providers of human health studies that would do either crossover studies or like these, like we talked about, these multi-center placebo-controlled studies. We've not received the results back from these studies. We wouldn't necessarily focus explicitly on inflammation. That's
mhm,
definitely a great indicator of effects on the immune system, but we would look for several um, signals or triggers that would indicate that, okay, like the immune system is being supported or is being influenced by a particular stimulant, which may be like a product that we're investigating.
mhm.
But we rely a lot on the literature which exists in the sites that we talked about today, and PubMed and Google Scholar, et cetera. And I'm sure that several of them cover um, inflammation among other properties.
Yeah, and again, back to that monolaurin and more. I'll check that out for people, but if people want to have a look themselves, it looks like a really great resource. So, your product, tell us a bit about your product, your monolaurin. You obviously wanted to create something that was going to create this ease of access for people. Your product is derived from coconut, am I correct? So,
That's
tell us
right.
a bit about that.
Yeah. So, like I mentioned, monolaurin's been around for a while. It's, lauric acid or glycerol monolaurate is actually listed on the FDA's GRAS list. GRAS is an acronym for generally recognized as safe. So it comes in several forms. Or the first is sort of this loose powder form. And for those listeners who like to encapsulate their own capsules at home, that's a really interesting or maybe fun way of getting your monolaurin, but it's not something I would recommend.
Mm,
Monolaurin by nature has a very soapy, very bitter, very unpalatable taste. So the main way people access monolaurin is either through pellets or capsules. Now, when we were designing our monolaurin formulas and products, we had to make a choice. Like, were we going to offer pellets or our capsules?
mm.
Pellets are a great way to get high dose monolaurin. They come in, for those people who are unfamiliar, pellets are these, teardrop shaped, BB sized pellets that come usually in a tub or a bag with a scoop, right? You take a big scoop and you wash it down with a cool liquid. And again, it's a fantastic way to get high dose monolaurin, but it has some drawbacks potentially. For example, if you read any reviews for pellet monolaurin, people often um, share that they take the monolaurin in the morning. By the end of the day, they sort of find it in the toilet, which
Oh,
may suggest that it's passing through the digestive system undissolved, right? So
yeah,
even though the scoop may be indicating or suggesting you're getting 5 grams of monolaurin, like you don't really know how much you're getting at the end of the day.
yeah.
Um, and there are other complications with pellets. The pellet itself, I believe, is made out of glycerol, which could be an irritant to digestive tract or the stomach. Um, the pellets are heat sensitive, so you have to take out the cool liquid. It's not going to survive a hot mailbox on a summer day.
Mm.
It's not very convenient to travel with, etc. So when we were designing the product, we thought capsules are probably the way to go.
Mm.
So when it comes to capsules, there are other choices that we had to make when designing the product. One is the capsule shell itself. Do we select animal gelatin capsule or a vegan plant cellulose capsule? And for our customers who may be sensitive to animal products, we definitely went with the vegan plant cellulose capsule. And then when it comes to the blending and encapsulation of the product, again, there's another choice that has to be made as it relates to an excipient. And
Yeah.
excipient is just a fancy word in the industry for like a flow agent or a lubricant, basically.
Hmm.
So encapsulation machines are these very sensitive, very high tech, very high velocity machines that fill thousands and thousands of capsules at a time. And in order to ensure uniformity across the capsules, like if the capsule says 600 milligrams, you really hope there's 600 milligrams in there.
Yeah.
You need that flow agent, you need that excipient. And again, the choice is either adopt a synthetic excipient like magnesium stearate or silica, or choose a natural alternative. And so, of course, we went with the natural alternative, which is organic rice powder. And just the ingredients themselves, we always adhere to naturally sourced, non-GMO, gluten-free, vegan ingredients. Things that happen behind the scenes that a lot of customers may not see as it relates to capsule production is the rigorous testing that gets done. So when we acquire raw materials, it always goes into quarantine. It gets tested for heavy metals, for microbials, for NSA for the presence of the product. And then, of course, we do testing of the finished product as well, always at an ISO 17025 certified laboratory, which is it's an accreditation body, which means that these laboratories are up to a standard, which is the ISO standard. So yeah, there's a lot of thought that goes into producing a capsule, a lot of decision points. But at the end of the day, we have 3 different monolaurin products. We have a 600 milligram product, which is the original and most popular. We have an 800 milligram product, which is I believe is a unique, the only one of its kind on the market. And then we have a combination product of L-lysine and monolaurin, which is a very, very popular monolaurin product as well.
That's the immunity one, right? The lysine.
So lysine is a fantastic product as well. It's ingredient, I should say. It is an essential amino acid, which means that it has to be obtained through diet or supplementation. Your body does not produce essential amino acids, and the research behind L-lysine is equally fascinating. Again, PubMed, Google Scholar, or even Monolaurin and More has plenty of articles in L-lysine and its potential health benefits.
So the monolaurin and the lysine that you have, that's in your immunity bottle, is it? It's the
We do.
immunity blend.
So actually, the our whole portfolio is immune focused.
Mm.
So again, like sort of getting back to our earlier conversation around sort of the foundations of the company and sort of our mission and values. Like, look, we want to provide research-based quality immune supplements, right? So again, I like sort of supporting those 58 million adults who can't afford medication and 29 million adults who doesn't have or don't have health insurance. So all of our products are immune focused, right? Immune support focused, and L-lysine plays a big part in supporting the proper immune function of maintaining and supporting healthy immune function, as does potentially monolaurin, as does you know all of our products and ingredients. What you may be thinking of, we have a product called immune support. It's a rather generic name, but it's
Yeah.
self-explanatory. It's a proprietary 16 ingredient blend, which we really, really labored over. Again, like every ingredient has a dossier of supporting studies that can support its impact on immune health.
Just back to what you were saying, and I hope I'm not catching you off guard here because my brain really works overtime when I'm talking to people. And what you were saying about the powder being very soapy and
Hmm.
bitter. So I'm
Yeah.
assuming that within your capsules is just a concentrated powder. And someone could potentially break them open and add them to, let's say, warm water.
Hmm.
Um, if they're bitter, potentially anyone listening, this could be very beneficial for the vagus nerve to further support gut health by stimulating vagal activity and enzyme production and bile and all that. I mean, nobody wants to eat soap, but nobody wants to have a bad gut for the rest of their lives. And I'm known for saying, eat your bitter, tart, sour things. So if you're buying capsules, I think, like, why couldn't you just crack open the capsule to get the bitter taste? And not only are you getting the benefits from the monolaurin, but you're getting this kind of multi-level benefit of stimulating with the bitter taste and whatnot. And then the second thing I was thinking, you said you guys use rice in it as more of kind of a binder. Have you considered at all, and I'm just curious, if you had considered magnesium stearate for people who have rice allergies? 'Cause that just popped in my head. I have several clients that can't take certain supplements because they have rice allergies. And I know the information is hit and miss about magnesium stearate. I've done a podcast episode on supplements and binders. I know I don't know if you know Paul Saladino. He talks about the benefits of magnesium stearate. I was just considering, I was like, oh, well, my clients that have rice issues now, maybe magnesium stearate. I don't know if you'd considered it, but like I said, my mind just goes.
Yeah, no, great points, and I'd be very happy to address all of them. So, excuse me, your first point around the bitterness and can a capsule be opened and just the contents taken either in water or another sort of delivery vehicle? Um, of course, yes. Some customers do. If you have a hard time like swallowing capsules, for example, you can open the capsule, put it in whether it's water or applesauce or pudding or whatever it may be. It really is bitter and soapy, and I'm not familiar with the sort of the benefit you're describing around the bitter taste. Um, but there are a lot of studies on monolaurin and gut health, actually, a lot. If you go to the monolaurin and more.com website, I think there's a whole section on gut health and monolaurin. What's really nice is from the research that we've seen, monolaurin does not negatively impact the healthy gut flora. Does not contribute to antibiotic resistance and can really be beneficial to overall gut health. Um, but that said, yeah, I'm just not familiar enough, I guess, about the benefits of like tasting bitterness rather than just having the sort of bitter substance like enter the digestive system without having to suffer through the the taste of it.
Well, now you've got something to look up, because we're my followers, my clients, we're all about the bitter and the apple cider vinegar and all that.
Yeah.
So you'd be surprised what people will do. I've had people do some crazy things, but yeah, definitely, I could see the connection for sure. And
Okay,
then,
great.
yeah.
And then regarding the magnesium stearate question, yeah, a rice allergy, from my understanding, is rather rare. Maybe not within your community or your sort of customer base, but look, when it came to assessing the trade-off of whether or not to use magnesium stearate or organic rice powder, our research had led us to believe that magnesium stearate may or may not contribute to um, some digestive sensitivities. It may upset the stomach. It may or may not slow the absorption of the product you're trying to take. So some studies suggested that there may be some vitamins or minerals that may not be as well absorbed if taken with magnesium stearate. And so we thought, and unfortunately, monolaurin, because of its soapy nature, it's a very sticky substance and really has to have some sort of excipient blended with it. It's very little, but it needs something. So we made the conscious choice to pursue the rice powder. We've used a couple variants. Right now, we use rice flour, which is basically micro ground rice, but we've also used a really interesting rice byproduct, the commercial name is ribus, but what they do is they use rice husks and hulls of like the rice production process, which is a waste product. It's usually either disposed of or maybe turned into animal feed. But they can take this rice hull and grind it up, and it has a very similar um, effect in capsule manufacturing. So that's what we've toyed with. Producing a variant that uses magnesium stearate is definitely something we can further explore.
Yeah, it's just an idea, and it is quite rare. But I must be lucky. I have like three clients who have rice allergies, which is surprising because rice is one of the foods that we would use on a hypoallergenic or elimination diet or something. But I was just curious. Magnesium stearate generally is the excipient that most manufacturers will go to as well. So with your product, I'm curious to know what dosages are you guys, do you see the benefits? I know you mentioned you have different products, but is there specific dosages? How often are we taking them to kind of reap the rewards that might come?
Right. Great question. The dosing, of course, will depend on the individual, on your personal tolerance or sensitivity to supplements, your age, weight, gender. A number of factors will contribute to dosing. And what I have to recommend is that you know um, individuals seek the professional support and guidance of a medical professional, your general practitioner, etc. So when it comes to like taking monolaurin and the dosing, there are three considerations or three generally pursued paths to dosing. The first is an introductory phase, right? So you and your clients may be familiar with a phenomenon called the Herxheimer reaction. So the Herxheimer reaction, for those who are not as familiar, is a die-off reaction, and it's this curious thing that happens when when you're, for example, taking an antibiotic. Maybe you have an infection, you're taking an antibiotic, and the antibiotic, causes a rapid die-off of a pathogen within your body. That rapid die-off will cause the release of these protein endotoxins, which flood the system, and your body has this this response. Um, uh, which is ironically similar to like a cold or flu. So you may get like a low grade fever, some body aches. You may feel like kind of icky, right? And even though you're quote getting better because you're taking antibiotics, you may feel worse, right? Which is a really really curious reaction. So in order to avoid this potential Herxheimer reaction, a lot of people choose to take monolaurin through this like low and slow introductory phase. So you may start with like one capsule a day and slowly increase that over time to two capsules, three, at whatever level you're aiming to get at over the course of time. You're sort of listening to and responding to your body and its tolerance. The second way to take monolaurin is uh, again as like sort of a daily driver supplement. So as many people might take vitamin C every day or vitamin D or a multivitamin, there is no documented upper limit to taking monolaurin, and indeed even the FDA's GRASP publication on glycerol monolaurate indicates that they're under good manufacturing processes it can be taken without restriction. So a lot of people choose to take monolaurin, sort of as a daily supplement. Monolaurin can be taken with or without food, as I'm sure you know. Some vitamins and minerals are made or can benefit from food because of the bioavailability of it, especially fat soluble vitamins. Could really benefit from being taken with some food. Monolaurin, I don't know if that's necessary, but a lot of people who may have sensitivities to like the soapy bitterness of it all may benefit from taking some food to sort of calm the digestive system. And then the third way to take monolaurin is again as you would take a little bit extra vitamin when you're not feeling very well. Like a lot of people choose like up their dose of zinc, for example. Like, oh, I have a scratchy throat, or I feel like I'm coming down with something. Like, I'll take a little extra zinc or a little extra vitamin C. A lot of people choose to do the exact same thing with monolaurin. So, if you feel like you need a little bit extra support in your immune system, you can up monolaurin. But again, it really comes down to the personal sensitivity and sort of a tolerance to supplements in general. And I highly recommend that monolaurin be taken under the direction and supervision of a medical professional.
Yeah, we talk about superdosing a lot with my clients. So that's what we would call it, where you would superdose because maybe you have like a head cold come on or your hip is sore. Maybe we'll superdose with certain omegas or something. But what you were saying about the Herxheimer reaction, that whole why do I feel worse? I'm supposed to be getting better. Like, what's wrong? Like, a lot of people will jump the gun and say, oh, I can't take that because this supplement made me feel worse. But sometimes you have to give it a bit of time. And my people, you guys know these endotoxins, you know well about lipopolysaccharides, you know what they do. So I'm very fortunate that I would say my followers are really smart, that they're really going to get this, what we're talking about. So the dosing, uh, I was curious about that because I was wondering, well, is there a loading phase? Like there would be some other supplements, but it seems like just kind of pace yourself. I think most people who are in this space that would listen to us and follow what people like us are doing, they're kind of got some good intuition. And anyway, they'll know their body, this is good or bad, or this has upset my stomach or whatever. We do have to give people credit. Some people are very wise, so I'm going to always work with a practitioner when it comes to what I'm going to ask you about next. Like, is monolaurin going to be complementary with other supplements? Like we see some fatty acids can complement other supplements when taken together. Is there going to be a contraindication? Maybe you don't understand your body. This is why you need to work with some sort of practitioner so they can guide you. Maybe you are having Herxheimer symptoms, but you're panicking and you don't understand. So it's really important. And that was my next question. Have you seen any contraindications around monolaurin? What about safety? Now, I'm pretty sure I know the answer, but pregnancy, safety, any concerns around it?
Yeah, great questions. Um, a lot of customers do ask us about reactions with with their diet or medications they may be taking. Um, we don't have research or evidence to suggest that there are complications or reactions with other medications. But again, I have to reinforce the fact that you should be working with a practitioner when taking any supplement. Monolaurin can be very complementary with other supplements. There's a lot of research on monolaurin along with L-lysine, which is exactly why we have the combination product. They work hand in hand, as it relates to certain disease profiles, which again can be researched on monolaurinandmore.com, and ones that I can't unfortunately really dig into here. But again, glycerol monolaurate, which is a chemical term for monolaurin, is again GRAS listed. So within the GMP guidelines, it should be safe to use. I've read several articles of people publications that suggest that upper doses of monolaurin can exceed 6 grams a day, that people can take it for an extended amount of time without issue, and that indeed it is safe because from our research understanding, it's used commercially in meat processing, in food processing, in vegetable and fruit transportation, in topicals. I've seen creams and lip balms and salves and other things of that nature that all sort of employ the therapeutic benefits and nature of monolaurin. And it's been around since the 60s, and I think that it's very, very well tolerated within the use cases that we're discussing today.
So you haven't seen any kind of bowel tolerance, any upper limit there? I mean, 6 grams is quite a lot. That's where we'd be heading with magnesium for bowel tolerance.
Yeah, so I mean, there are, I guess you could develop, it's not an adverse reaction, but with taking a lot of anything, you could get, for example, stomach upset, diarrhea, cramps, things that you would expect from taking a large amount of any fatty acid, right? So
Mm,
monolaurin is at the end of the day a 12 chain um, fatty acid, and that can probably lead to some digestive issues if you take a lot of it.
yeah, that and that's key for people to understand as well. Monolaurin is a 12 carbon chain fatty acid that's found in coconut. And yes, we do want to be careful with certain molecules, but a bit of common sense as well, people, because if it comes from coconut, I get this question as well about collagen. Is it safe for this, that, or the other category? My kids, my pregnancy. And I'm always apprehensive to say yes or no, but sometimes it's a bit of common sense. If this was going to be a problem for you, you wouldn't be able to eat coconut. You wouldn't be able to eat animal meats. Animal meats contain collagen. Or I'll get questions about vitamin C. Well, if you couldn't tolerate vitamin C, you couldn't eat fruit and vegetables. So sometimes let's just think about it. But I definitely would be curious about the bell tolerance. If I ever try that, I'll let you know about that. But something that kind of sparked my interest earlier, and I think this will be the last question and then we'll wrap it up. But this, I'm curious, and I don't mean to break the horse's back talking about Candida, but this sprung to mind. Monolaurin and caprylic acid, what do you think about the comparison there? Like, what say you on this topic? They both come from coconut oil, they both have a lot of the same properties.
Yeah, in fact, coconut oil contains three or more of these medium chain fatty acids. I think it's capric, caprylic, and lauric acids all exist in coconut oil. Lauric acid being the lion's share of the fatty acids found in coconut oil. It's about 50% of all of the fatty acid content of coconut oil. Look, there are incredible. There's good research on capric and caprylic acids as well, right? They both contain, potentially immune supporting properties. I think that the scientific community sort of rallied around lauric acid because of the results that have been found in some of these studies that have been going on for the last couple decades. I don't. I think that they can be complementary because, like, look, when you take coconut oil, you're taking all three of these fatty acids at the same time, and I think that commercially there are some companies that produce blends that contain the other extracts of coconut oil, such as capric and caprylic acids. But I don't have a ton of commentary on sort of any synergistic benefit of taking these different fatty acids together or isolating them and taking them individually. Our research has led us to come to the conclusion that lauric acid is the hero of the story here, and so that's why we've invested so much time and effort to support and educate on the benefits of lauric acid and monolaurin.
We'll have to have them fight it out. If I come up with a lot of money, I'm going to get a lab and we're going to compare who's better, who's going to win. So hopefully your product wins, so you don't have to change everything. But caprylic acid is popular with my clients. Obviously, I sound like a broken record. Candida, fungal overgrowths, even bacterial vaginosis. These are big things that people are dealing with. So caprylic acid is usually most people's go-to, but now I'm very curious as to the whole monolaurin, the efficacy, how effective is this going to be? I will keep you updated because, like I said, a lot of my clients, they'll do what I tell them to do. They're great like that. So they'll always give me feedback. Oh my God, this worked immediately, or amazing, or my symptoms were gone in 3 days, or whatever. So I'll let you know if I get feedback on that. But this has been really interesting, because although I've spoke about monolaurin a lot, I really think audio is the way of the future, that people will listen rather than read nowadays. I think you probably agree there that we're too busy. We're just let me listen to it. So this is going to be really helpful for people. So thank you for joining me, us, everyone, Damon. Where can my followers, where can people find more about you? And I know we've covered the monolaurin and more website, but you and your products and just more information there.
Yeah, thank you. Um, we can be found at naturalcurelabs.com. We keep a very low profile on social media because, again, we are trying our absolute best to be as compliant as possible, and there's a lot of things we can't say. So, Natural Cure Labs is the best way to find us. We are in the process of a gradual name change. We're rebranding as Palmera Health, as you indicated at the top of the show. The little bit of story behind Palmera is that Palmarius is an ancient Roman term, which it means someone or something extraordinary, because the root of the word comes from palm, because the palm frond, the palm leaf, was given to the victor of a competition in ancient Roman times, and so we love the sort of connection between something extraordinary. Palm produces coconut, which is again such an integral part of our offering. So we're slowly changing to Palmera Health. So what depends on when people choose to seek us out, but either searching Natural Cure Labs or Palmera Health should get you to the right spot. And we've got a great team of folks who are absolutely dedicated to providing exceptional customer support, answering questions, and providing educational materials. And we're very, very eager to help.
Well, that really just rounded out our conversation nicely. That was really interesting about the Romans. There's a lot of ancient wisdom out there, and obviously makes a lot of sense. We all want to be extraordinary, which should drive people more towards your website as it is. But I like it. I like the connection. So I'll keep an eye out for the changes. Thank you for joining me. It's really been a pleasure. And like I said, when I get some feedback on bowel tolerance and the whole Candida thing, I'll let you know just how we went. We're not going to do any research, but I'm just going to give you some feedback.
Wonderful. Thanks for having me. The pleasure's been all mine. And
Thank you very
really
much.
hope that you and your customers, or I'm sorry, your community walks away with something. And again, don't believe me. Please do the research. Figure it out for yourself. You should become very, very comfortable with anything you decide to introduce into your overall wellness routine, and work with your practitioner. And thanks again.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Damon. Thanks so much for joining us.